Worf waits for the ecology of District 6 to right itself. Captain Shaw is feeling chipper. And Picard practiced his Bajoran for 30 years. Hello, everybody, and welcome to The Seventh Rule with Cirroc Lofton.
Hello.
My name is Ryan T. Husk, and today we're doing a review of Star Trek Picard Season 3, Episode 5, entitled Imposters, written by Cindy Appel and Chris Derrick, directed by Dan Liu, and we've got a very special guest with us right now, director of Episode 5 and 6, Mr. Dan Liu.
Hey, everybody. Nice to meet you.
Hello, Dan. This is so cool. Let's just get right into this because we're loving this season, all of Picard, but this is just intense. It's fun. It's funny. It's cinematic. And you are directing 2 episodes. First things first, you directed an episode of Strange New Worlds, episode 4, I think Memento Mori, if I remember correctly, the ship in a bottle, super, high intensity episode. Did you get the call to direct Picard because of that, or were you already kind of in the
absolutely.
mix before?
No, it was shortly after I turned in my cut of Strange New Worlds, then I got the call to do Picard.
Yeah, what was the big transition like, or if any, to go from one to the other? Did you notice any differences, or was it kind of a seamless thing?
I mean, they're in different countries, so the whole crew and the mentality on set is very different. Where, in Toronto, it really feels like it's the crew that could. They're like it almost feels like a big budget indie movie where you could do anything you want with the crew there that has experience on Discovery and Strange New Worlds. And this one is seasoned LA professionals and, just experience, even starting from the cast with all the Next Generation to everyone working on set. It's just a different mentality. I wouldn't say it's better or worse. I would just say you're coming into it from a very LA perspective. And our stages are admittedly smaller than in Canada. So I don't know, some people say something about, how many sets we have. And we do have a amount of sets like that hallway. The corridor is actually just a T intersection corridor and another long corridor, and that the length is not even close to what we have in Strange New Worlds. But because of the way the camera guys and the DP and us plan it out with the blueprints and all the scenes, you don't really feel it, I feel, watching these episodes.
So you're talking about the corridor on the Titan?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's really cool. I didn't even notice.
Yeah, there's a little less space in the stages here, but just creatively, I think they've managed to change it up enough. And, they can change certain lighting and panels in between scenes just to mix it up. And that's often what we do. And even in Canada, we have this one really long half circle corridor, but they'll change the panels. And sometimes we'll add the glass panels there to indicate what department hallway it is. And they just do clever tricks to reuse that set and make it look fresh and new.
Yeah, that corridor actually did seem like it was long when I was watching this episode. Jack was in it a few times. I think there were a few shots with Jack in there. One with Picard and Ro, if I'm not mistaken. But it did feel like, the depth behind was extremely long. Is that a backdrop, or how are you guys?
No. It kind of curves, and that's where it ends. So you have that distance, and then you just choose some scenes to shoot it at a higher angle, some scenes to shoot at a lower angle. Some scenes will just try to get to us on the side more and through a door. So there's different ways to make it look different, but essentially that's what it is.
So upon watching episode 5 here, whether you watched it just again today or whether you just watched it a year ago, what really stood out? Was there a moment where you were really proud, where you're like, man, that is a good shot that I wanted, or that's a really good, delivery of some lines that I helped to coach? Was there anything that really jumped out at you that you're really proud of?
Patrick and Michelle at the bar. All of their scenes, they brought so much background to it. I mean, you could tell the actors were excited, even as we talked about them before rolling, even as we talked through the scenes. even in prep, like everyone was excited about these scenes. And so there was this sort of energy right away as we started doing them. And then for my job, it's to get variations on that energy and sometimes to bring that energy down or sometimes to raise it. But it was all there to play with. And when you have that ready to try different things and mold and the actors are all game to, give variations, that's the most fun you can have as a director. Because, that's what I think of as real directing is where you and a couple actors get together and you guys play. And everything else, there's a lot of like puzzle piecing, a lot of dynamic stuff you can do for directing, but character work for me is always the most exciting because also that's not predetermined. We have to obviously get the meaning of the script across, but how you do that can be magical sometimes. And I think that's what Michelle and Patrick brought anytime they were together on the set.
Yeah, I have to say that I also like the scene with Michelle Hurd and Michael Dorn.
Yeah.
When they were going through the whole through the fight scene. And by the way, the villain was very well cast too. The Vulcan villain who played Kryn, I thought was good. I liked his voice. I liked his
just to add
delivery.
to that, I didn't because he didn't seem kind of like a typical Vulcan. Like it's tough to really tell, but he doesn't look like he was terribly tall. And we always kind of imagined Vulcans to be at least somewhat tall and slender. And he kind of seemed a little less, but it's tough to really tell. But he just had this really interesting cadence and voice, right? Really cool though. Gave a really good character.
Yeah, I mean, part of that, I think, he's such a great actor that I knew growing up watching Fringe, and we used him in Walking Dead, but Terry Matalas used him in 12 Monkeys. So I think they've always been looking for an excuse to bring that talent. He's such a high caliber actor to bring him back into some work they did. And just when he said these lines, because he talks very differently in real life, and when he just became Vulcan, you're just like, oh, hey, that's pretty cool. Okay.
Yeah, there was a thing to his voice where it was like, oh God, it's the villain voice. It's a great villain voice. You look for those kinds of things, and there was inflections in his voice that I thought, oh, he's pulling off this villain voice extra good. And but that scene with Michael Dorn and Michelle, and I was like, I was like, oh shit, they just killed Warp. And I really thought it went down. Like you sold me on that. I was fully sold.
Thank you. That's a lot of work with the stunt department as well, because how these things work, at least for me, is when you're prepping, you get a heads up however many weeks you're going to be shooting the scene. And then you meet with the stunt department and you talk about the script and you talk about your hopes and wishes. They go off and do their choreography, and you come and meet them after they've done the choreography. And then we all kind of, me and the fight coordinator and the stunt coordinator, watch the stunt doubles reenact this, and we'll like think about it and talk about it, and then any modifications to make, any like things to own, something I think that might Michelle might look better doing or something rather than a different move, and we'll just tweak it a little bit until we send it for approval, which falls to Terry, and then they start teaching the actors. And I always like for all of my stunt scenes to be very much ahead of the game because I believe the actor needs to rehearse because I want to use their face as much as possible. So they had 2 weeks to rehearse this, and then we did it. Now, they said this on the ready room, but we actually had to cut their fight shorter because on the day, due to production issues, we had 2 hours less to shoot the scene.
Oh, no.
So, as I was waiting and for us to be up and shoot the scene, they're like, oh, we don't think we can finish this, the stunt guy said, because you only have 2 hours. And I'm like, okay, let's get the actors together, look at the choreography, and really make the deep cuts. And luckily, they were okay with that. Obviously, with 2 weeks of training, no one's happy that we have to miss out on some of those moments, especially since if you notice, there's certain moves that call back to their practice fight. And the whole point of it is Worf is essentially reenacting the practice fight with her to show her and him to come up with a plan to fake his death. Right. And there's a lot of like looks between them. And in the original choreography, it was more her realizing what he's trying to tell her, and kind of her telling him through moves that it's okay, I'm going to do this. And so there was about 2 more sections of fight that we couldn't shoot, that we had to
with
truncate.
with a communication happening between them, kind of thing.
While doing moves, while like because along with the headbutt, there was a wraparound, a couple other like slashes, a couple kicks, and so we all truncated it into a much more shootable version. But I think it still got the point across, luckily.
Mm-hmm. No, it definitely did. And what a bummer, though, because those actors were probably very proud, and the stunt coordinators and the stunt doubles very proud of what they put together. But it's great that kind of came out looking seamless. I actually wanted to add to that, which was you did such a great job, and the editors and the actors and the stunt people did such a great job of making it seamless to where we couldn't tell where the stunt person was, the stunt double, and where the actor was. And a lot of that has to be training on the actors' parts to be able to sell these moves when the camera is on them. Like when Michelle Hurd does the little double flip with the piping, mm-hmm. or when there's just a swing or something going on, and you're looking at that's her face, that's Michael Dorn's face. So that was really well done. It was seamless. I couldn't catch anything there. So
thank you. Yeah, I mean, to do that, you have to shoot it in all the different configurations where you shoot the actors, then one actor with one stunt double where they're not afraid to actually like hurt them. So they can, because the stunt double knows how to take a hit more than a regular actor would. And then you shoot the stunt doubles in wides. So there's a couple different ways where when it comes together, it just comes together. I mean, and I'm glad we could still get both of their face in some moments, like when Worf does a little knife flip and then it pans over to Raffi and she's like, oh, okay, come on.
Mm-hmm. And I want to ask you about that, because this actually seemed to have some of the best fight scenes filming that I've seen in Star Trek. There were moments, the other moment that I thought worked really well and was shot well was the Jack Crusher against the Changelings fight scene.
Wow,
he does this kind of reverse headlock, kind of weird neck move, and I love that. And so I guess my question is, your experience and your background of working in these kinds of environments and filming these kinds of fight scenes really translated well into this genre of sci-fi.
Thank you. Yeah, I've done wushu for 18 years. So, a lot of my friends are stuntmen and stuntwomen in Los Angeles. So
you said you've done wushu for 18 years. Okay.
Wow.
Yeah. Okay, so you understand the fight.
Yeah, that's why I like to get in on the choreography with the stunt guys to see what they come up with, because I'm excited when they come up with cool stuff. I'm like, oh, that looks great. So, I really like to be involved. And I think part of that was in my first meeting after I got the script. I really emphasized to everyone involved, the ADs and the producers, like, we need to get the ball rolling because there's 3 action sequences here and they're hand to hand, and it's going to, need a lot of prep if we want to pull it off. And so they're like, oh, okay, like how much time? And so then we worked out that schedule and made sure everyone could train properly. And, actually that Jack fight, I'm very proud of, but it's what they told me it was one of the first times where on camera, the phaser switches the kill mode. Because if you notice, it's blue in stun mode, and then he disarms the guy with a move, switches it to kill mode, and turns and shoots the girl, and then all the other changelings in the fight. Mm-hmm. So I thought that was like a really fun detail to include. And just the fact that it's not done often. So let's do it.
You know what else is not done often?
Made him look like a real badass too. I mean, he looked like it's like the guy not to mess with.
Yeah, but you know what else doesn't happen often in Star Trek until recently is good fight scenes. When Cirroc was just saying like a good Star Trek fight scene, it kind of hit me. I was like, that's right. Star Trek in the past, the double axe handle.
I mean, that was a different time period.
You guys are killing it.
You killed it. That's what I'm saying. You really raised the bar, and I've never seen it done where I actually look back and say, wow, that's like a martial arts movie moment, in a Star Trek episode. I'd never felt that. I always felt like, okay, this is, some phaser action, or usually one punch, a counter, and then another, but not an actual choreographed whole, like, fight scene. And I enjoyed it. That was one of my treats in this episode, as well as the storyline and the pace. and you kept the pace going on. And you mentioned editing. Is that also part of the final product, the music, the editing? Are you
Oh,
involved all the
absolutely.
way through?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm not, because in television, the director has kind of 4 days to edit, and then you just hope and pray that they like and keep as much as they can. And for streamers, we've been very lucky where the time limit is not as a factor as the old days. Because, back in Star Trek, well, I grew up with The Next Generation, where my mom would play it on TV when I was a little kid. And, back in those days, they were locked down to 42 minutes. So, you know what? Like, what's the first thing to cut out to take down time? What about a big long shot VFX shot of a behind one of the enterprises or whatever? It's
Or a
like
long fight scene.
or a long fight scene. Cut that out because we need to get the story and plot moving. And you don't need to do that as much with streaming. Obviously, there's still a limit, just audience attention span, like what actually feels natural. So you don't want it to go on forever. But I think there's a lot more artistic license to be had. And one thing I'm actually very pleasantly surprised, is how good Terry is with the spaceship VFX, because a lot of those are kind of just scripted one-liners. And on Strange New Worlds, the directors are more involved in the kind of previs of it with the VFX team. But with this one, the time being so tight and me focusing on fight scenes and VFX for in the show, those kind of exterior shots, you're just like, two ships here, or like, you kind of just like ride a slug, and then like that's all the showrunner coming up with those exterior shots, unless it's like a scripted moment where the ship crashes into the cell type of thing. But like all of those kind of just like even the Intrepid appearing, that
Exactly.
was
It's
like we
beautiful.
had one line and he just made it happen. It's like, nice, good job.
Yeah, I was just going to mention that when the Intrepid shows up and they're kind of nose to nose, and they really don't, this team really does not skimp out on the VFX or the details within the VFX. Like, you can zoom in forever and it still looks beautiful. The attention to detail is amazing. That stuff takes forever and it's super expensive, and it doesn't go unnoticed, the talent and the resources that go into these.
Yeah, I mean, even the art, when in our art meetings, when you see kind of like the renderings and the concept arts, like Dave Blass and his team have done amazing detailed work. And I love that he's such a Star Trek nerd that you can just kind of pick his brain about tiny little moments, or even, what does this do on the ship? Why is this here? And like, well, what if it lights up this way? Or what if it's over here? Or can we move this over here? And, you'll have an encyclopedic knowledge between the people that work with him or him. That just really makes all the sets and even some of the VFX look brilliant.
Oh, and one more thing, sorry. On the VFX, I actually put in my notes a lot of asterisks in my notes. Wow, the Daystrom station looks beautiful. It wasn't a very long shot, but I did rewind and look at it like 2 or 3 times because it looked phenomenal. I had to point that out.
In the preview scene in the ready room, you can see they're looking over a map of it as they're talking about what could happen in the next episode.
Yeah, I also like how when they're giving us the shipborne moments and they're giving us those beautiful shots, they slow it down and kind of move the camera. They're moving us around and giving us like, we know you want to see this. We know you guys want to look at this moment and savor it. And I love that pause to soak it in and give us guys that want to see the moment to celebrate it. But yeah, the story was really great, and you talked about guys that know a lot, Star Trek nerds. I felt like this was real candy for the Star Trek nerds as far as storyline too, because we had a lot of the backstory on Commander Rowe and the Bajorans, and just that entire meaty stuff, which gave us very sentimental and emotional moments where I felt very connected to the story. And you mentioned working with Picard in those kind of scenes in the bar. I thought it worked very well, and you played the softness of it the way I wanted to see it.
Thank you. Yeah, I think a lot of my prep was just having her episodes on loop while I was working throughout the weeks in prep.
Oh, cool.
And, you can kind of just see the dynamics they played with. And when you're working with them, a lot of times it isn't telling actors directly. It's kind of setting up the opportunity for them to, go where you're hoping they would go. And they would always take like the scene to places I hope for and more. So, sometimes you'd see that and you're like, oh, can we lean into this more? Or, oh, really like this moment. Let's try it like on a close up as well, and they're such pros. And I think part of that was Patrick just hasn't done a scene with her that he could actually use his personal experience from all that time back then and the Next Generation days. And, I think, you read about the interviews on Picard, and it really seems like that is what resonates, where he, as a person in real life, he can remember the time when he was filming that, and he brings a lot of that to Picard, meeting these characters again. And that's what's special about this season is like, you get that all the time, but like in such subtle and like heartwarming ways.
We only have you for a couple more minutes here, Dan, but I've got to ask you that we know the directors here on Picard, they do 2 at a time, 2 episodes at a time. It's really cool. It's a great idea, and you kind of get a hint as to the rhythm of a season. Whether it's episode to episode, or in this case, it was like a 4-episode block. Maybe the next 4 episodes are also a block, and then the final 2 is like, the final chapter, or the 3rd act. But as a director, does that help you creatively, logistically? Does it make things difficult because now you're doing 2 episodes back to back? What's that experience like?
It's tremendously helpful because I think as a journeyman director, or journeywoman directors for them, you're just coming into a show and meeting people for the first time, more often than not. So the longer and more time you can spend with them, the more you can kind of bring things out of everybody as you work with them. So I love doing blocks. I'd love doing more than a block, just in general, in my line of work, just so that you can really get to know the crew, you can get to know the cast, and you can really like follow their story along the whole season. And so, I'm always excited when I can extend my stay as a director. I know Strange New Worlds is very episodic, so every episode feels different, which is why one director does one. But, for Picard, kind of the longer storytelling narrative, then it is nice to have 2 episodes to kind of work that story in and try to get your perspective into it. It's really cool.
And when you're making that transition, who is it that works alongside you the most, that helps you kind of get acclimated to certain, for example, the lighting of the different sets? Is it the cinematographer that really helps with the continuity from one episode to the next?
AD and cinematographer. So, in prep, on shows with this budget, they usually have 2 cinematographers, one with the director to prep and shoot with them, while the other one is prepping and shooting with the next block director. So then you have your DP and you have your AD and your second AD. So those 3 people are kind of like your personal crew, where like you guys really get to the nitty gritty. You figure out what's on for this season, what's different, what you can do, and just, what are we going to do with this script? Is it shootable?
My first thought of that when you were talking about the different crew people, my first thought was, I wonder who on the crew is like the Captain Shaw of the production, the guy that says no. You don't have to answer that. I'm guessing it's the line producer, but we don't even have to, you don't have to confirm or deny. But Dan, this has been so much fun, and we really are happy for your success with several productions you've had in the past, plus Strange New Worlds, plus Picard, and everybody. You heard it here first. He's available for an entire season block. So not just 2 episodes. He wants the whole thing.
Absolutely.
But yeah, Dan, thank you so much for joining us. We wish you continued success, and hope you get more episodes.
Thank you. Enjoy the final season of Picard. It's pretty special.
I think we will.
We're loving this final season. This episode was fantastic. It's funny because it's almost getting better and better where I think it can't, and it's just beating my expectations. And Dan, you really delivered a fine episode, something to really be proud of, and I'm grateful to have met you and wish you continued success.
Thank you, guys. Nice
He's
to meet
thinking
you.
right now. He's thinking, just wait till you see next week. But
Well,
everybody,
there's next week, and I can also plug Strange New World season 2. So,
ooh, are you?
Yeah.
Well, I guess we can't get into that, but
no spoilers. No spoilers.
we don't have to plug it. Everybody's super excited about Strange New Worlds too, so we're looking forward to that very much. Everybody at home, stick around. We'll be right back. And Dan, thank you very much. We'll be right back on The Seventh Rule. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to The Seventh Rule with Cirroc Lofton.
Hello.
Here are the Trivioids of the week. You've been dying to hear them. And here they are. Jack Crusher sleepwalks. The Titan is getting repairs. Captain Shaw kinda knights 7 of 9. Worf's weakness is talking. Same, bro. Worf and Raffi are now the alphas of District 6. Worf waits for the ecology of District 6 to right itself. Captain Shaw is feeling chipper, and Picard practiced his Bajoran for 30 years. Man, so this was good stuff. There were a lot of fun little Easter eggs in this one. We also saw our buddy Jin Maley get a lot of FaceTime as Ensign Esmar. That was fun, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And they're all
very
these...
good to see. And then I was like, "What are you killing Jin?"
Yeah, already.
Character. I was like, "What the heck's going on in this episode?"
Yeah,
but I should have known it was one of those
dream sequences,
things.
Right? What's going on there?
Yeah.
He's sleepwalking. He's constantly imagining things. It's not just when he's asleep. He's like standing there, imagining killing the transporter chief or whatever that was. There's all kinds of stuff, and now he's hearing voices. Jack Crusher is. I don't know though. I usually have theories, but I don't this time.
I don't know, but I will say, and this is my only, I have no validation of this, but it sounds like the voice that's calling to him in his head, telling him to come to him or something like that. It sounds like the voice of the main villain of Amanda Plummer's character.
I heard that as well, but I also thought I heard also Beverly's voice.
So I can't. I have no I have no confirmation. It just sounded like it, and I'm like, is there a connection between this villain and Jack? So that's That's all I got on that. Definitely something's going on because he's seeing all type of red doors and all. I don't want to be in his head.
Now, also, if you'll recall, back in the day, we would always talk about on Deep Space Nine that Major Kira's character was based off of somebody. That's Ro. Her character was based off of this character. And she was originally going to be the spin-off character on Deep Space Nine. With Chief O'Brien was going to be there as well. But so Major Kira was based off of this character, Ro Laren, but she declined. And so then they changed it to Major Kira and they cast a not visitor, and the rest is history. But there's a lot of history there in The Next Generation with this character. So that's why the internet, presumably and most assuredly, is exploding with this character coming back. She wasn't in a ton of episodes, but she had quite an impact. She's also a great actor. She was in some really amazing episodes of Battlestar Galactica in the past and a bunch of other stuff. But I was wondering what your impression of her kind of with like fresh eyes was.
Great actor. I enjoyed the chemistry between Ro and Picard. You could tell there was this history there. You could tell that he had felt betrayed. He conveyed that very well in this episode. But yeah, I was very moved when the moment came and Ro handed the earring, and all that talk about the earring. I really have the earring. I had it this whole time, and I'm giving it to you. And the whole dialogue about, I'm going to give you what you gave me, which is a fighting chance. I thought those were really good, well written. I mean, these episodes are well written. They are giving you just enough of the moment where, everything pauses and two people have to say what they need to say. But it doesn't happen like while the whole thing's blowing up and everything's crashing down. It's at the appropriate moments. And the tempo is just lovely in the show.
And by the way, Michelle Forbes, the actress that plays Ro Laren, I keep wanting to call her Ensign Ro, but she's Commander now. She looked fantastic. She acted beautifully.
Absolutely.
You always kind of wonder when somebody's, at least perceivably from my point of view, I haven't seen her in anything since Battlestar Galactica, which is like 2006 or something like that. So you wonder, how are they doing? What's new with them? How have they changed? Are they still great at acting? What's the story? And man, I feel like she even got better as an actress. She was really good. So I was really happy about that. It was great to see her, and it was great to see the actress really nailing it.
100% brought out some of the best performance out of Patrick Stewart that I've seen in this show, because he really got deep and personal. I like the whole bar scene. I thought was excellent when he takes the safety protocols off the bar and kind of does, hey, no, I've just got the glasses here.
Slick.
It was slick. It was great. It was filmed well. He played it off well. I just thought it was done well, and the chemistry was great. There was also moments when Picard has to tell Shaw that he needs to take off and run because Starfleet's compromised and they're about to get shot at. I like the drama there too. There was just the drama was there, and I thought it was well delivered on both ends. From Shaw's perspective of like kind of having the dilemma of, he said something to the effect of, I'm not going to turn my crew into a bunch of fugitives.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. And he's faced with that decision like on the spot. And of course, Picard looks at him and says, well, you're going to have to trust me. And I think that was another big moment in this episode. I just thought this episode was full of really good stuff. The scenes between Michelle Hurd, Michael Dorn, Rafi and Worf, they have a great chemistry together.
Rafaela.
Very well. Rafaela. Their chemistry is amazing. It's fun to watch them go back and forth with each other.
When he calls her Rafaela, she should call him like an extended name, like Wolfman or Kessel Wolfenstein, or it's just kind of something. I don't know if that would work, but what's the name? Shaw also made some really cool references when he was talking to Picard and Riker. He says, "You hot dropped the saucer section of the Enterprise D on a planet." Or that time that someone threw the Prime Directive out the window to snog a villager on Baku, or the time that you boys nearly wiped all of humanity by creating a time paradox in the Devron system. So what's cool about that, obviously, is they are that Star Trek Next Generation fans will know those are actual movies and episodes. The first one, the saucer section, that was Star Trek Generations, the first Next Generation movie, and snogging a villager on Baku, that was Star Trek Insurrection. That was the third Next Generation movie. And the last thing was the time paradox in the Devron system. That's actually the final episode, All Good Things, of Next Generation. So I was like, are those like movie and episode names? I don't know, but it was really cool because Star Trek fans are all like, so of course we go back to like listen to it again, but those were really good references, and Captain Shaw has studied them well. Do love Captain
Well, he's
Shaw.
Watched all the movies. Captain Shaw's seen all
That's what it is. He's just a Trekkie. That's what it is.
But but yeah, back to that Michelle Forbes scene. When she says, you broke my heart, and he says, and you broke mine. And I thought that at the end, Picard says, if that pain tells us anything, it's that we are who we say we are.
Exactly.
I love that line. I thought it was just perfect. It was like, that's confirmation enough that you feel that way. I feel this way. We had a real like heart to heart and kind of a open conversation with each other. And so that's enough validation. I don't need a blood test or a DNA test.
Right, because and that was really cool when Beverly Crusher sent him the little message where the blood test doesn't work. So now Picard's like, okay, I can't test them physically. I can't test them mentally. So I have to test them emotionally. I got to see what this changeling or Bajoran feels like. And a changeling would not have that emotion, would not, even if they could fake the emotion, they would not know believably which emotion to fake. But Picard knows that she is reacting in a real way. So that's really cool. That's brilliant writing. Well done by Cindy Appel and Chris Derrick, and of course, Terry Matalas. And beautifully done by Dan Liu, directing that. He said that was his favorite scene, or the one he was most proud of. Great stuff.
And I can't stop singing Todd Stashwick's praises because he's ridiculous when it comes to delivering lines. He's
I'm starting to hate him because of how good he is. It's making me feel bad about myself.
They need to bring back The Office just so that he has the platform to do all of the stuff that he does so well. I think he can star in The Office.
You mean like be the next Steve Carell?
Yes.
Oh my God, that would be so good.
Yes, he has that Steve Carell where he can say, he could just be that guy.
That's brilliant.
But so anyways, so, the lines he says, so when he finally gets his ship back and Riker's like, okay, I'm giving you your ship back. You're now in charge again. He finally gets back in charge, and he was like on his best behavior up until that moment. And then finally, as soon as he
makes them eat shit so hard, right?
It was so beautiful. It was so beautifully written. First he goes to 7 of 9 and says, you want in or out? And she's like, I'll take in. And he's like, okay.
But he said, basically, he's saying like, while you're getting tried and court-martialed or whatever, do you want to be that as an officer or as a non-officer?
Yeah.
So good. And when he says you guys, I'll give you plenty of time as a courtesy. I'm going to give you time to get your bullshit straight or something like that.
Yeah, your bullshit story straight.
Mm-hmm.
I just thought that he's like, oh, by the way, I already did call Starfleet and they're on their way. Like, it's just like, like, I'm not going down for any of this, guys. This is all on you.
Character.
A+. Mm-hmm. And then the line he gives, which made me really, I'm like, this guy's just, every line he gets, he turns one line into like the quotable line of the story. Like, so he's the guy that's always in the movie clip when they show what the movie's about. He's got the line in the movie where they're like, I'll be back or whatever.
Right.
It's whatever he says.
What you talking about, Willis?
Yeah. He's got the line, and this one was, at some point he says, oh yeah, that was the fastest court martial I've ever seen. It was hilarious. I just loved the way he delivered it.
There are some memes out there right now that basically have Captain Shaw's face and his catchphrase below it. And basically it's just his face and the catchphrase is no. Chef's kiss. That's perfect. That's his catchphrase. No. No.
That's it. I don't know if you noticed, but right away in the beginning of this opening of this episode, there was a sound effect. And it reminded me, and I'm pretty sure it was
of the original
series. Just the beat, the honing beacon sound or whatever that they use, right?
Or whatever's going on there. Yeah. I put that. I said I hear the ding of the TOS bridge, and then we heard it as we're coming into the ship, if I remember correctly. But then we also heard another similar sound a little bit later on that bridge as well, once or twice as well. But it was very, 2 or 3 times max, kind of faint,
Okay.
but it's unmistakable.
It was obvious in the beginning, right? And I was like, oh, that's a nice little touch. That one little thing brought me back to the original series and kind of
Beautiful.
paid its homage. Yeah, I mean, there's too many. Like I said, I keep saying the Worf getting killed scene. When he says today is a good day to die, and you are a mighty, or what does he say? You are a mighty warrior or something. You are a warrior, and this is a worthy death. I enjoyed that whole line. Also, when he came back around and said, "Klingons never disappointed," I I love that whole scene. I really did. And I even loved when he kind of starts to brag about, I mastered Kalis art of heart regulation, or
he likes
heart
to talk.
Yeah, and then he coughs in the middle because his own bragging kind of inflames the injury. So I thought that was well played, and a little comic relief there. Starfleet being compromised. Whoa, that's another throwback to Deep Space Nine and the whole was the Homefront episode.
Yeah, in Paradise Lost. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so this is a callback to the infiltration of the changelings in Starfleet, right?
But apparently it's worse. Is what they're insinuating, is that it's even deeper. Right. There's way more of them. I mean, there were just 4 right there on the ship. And if I remember correctly, in Paradise Lost or Homefront, the changelings tells him there are 4 on the entire planet. And he said, something to the effect of, if just 4 of us can wreak this much havoc on your planet, imagine what we could do, whatever. So there are a ton. We don't know how many. But they killed 4 at least.
And I didn't know Jack Crusher's middle name was Reacher.
Jack Reacher, very good. You didn't know Jack.
Because he went full Jack Reacher in that hallway, which was kind of, these are changelings, boy. They weren't the best of the batch. Because if I'm a changeling, you're gonna, I'm switching into something that'll kick your ass.
Well, see, we don't even really know if these are some kind of changeling hybrid or what, because they're having some differences. Like, they can replicate organs, they can replicate blood. There's a lot going on here. So either they are a completely different kind of changeling, like a different. It's possible maybe there's just another planet with similar changelings, or I think they mentioned Odo said that some of the changelings have split off and they're like a rogue faction. So they've clearly done some changes or enhancements or something to where now they're like super changelings. They're like ultra changelings.
Yeah, they're like gremlins in water or something. But I have a question for you. Did you pick up on the NAMs?
Yeah, we got Admiral Janeway.
Yep.
Sneed was a NAM because he wasn't on there. Also, the earring was a data chip. So I don't know if that counts.
Okay.
Those are the only ones I got.
Chancellor Rowe, somebody?
No, Chancellor Roll. I don't think so. I didn't look it up, but I didn't recognize that name. But it's always interesting when they give us a new character. I mean, naming somebody we already know is cool, but giving us somebody new is also cool. But we did get a lot on the view screen when they were looking up Kryn. If you'll recall, when he was looking up Kryn, there was a bunch of names on there. I didn't write them down because I know that all of the cool Star Trek nerds would for us. So let me take a quick check here that our buddy Don Crandall, I'm sure, sent them over. Let me see. Okay, I'm going to check elsewhere, but there were a few names that were mentioned. Here we are. Dr. Anne-Marie Segal sent this one in. Oh, Laurel of Renia was on the view screen. Check this out here. Laurel, because you're Warfit. No, thank you. Snida Ferenginar, Toluco of Romulus, right? But L'Rell was from a Deep Space Nine episode, if you'll recall. Who Mourns for Morn? She was like one of the, the gangsters or whatever, that were trying to get the Morn's money or whatever when that episode where he was missing. Also, in another screenshot here, you'll recognize a couple other names, of course. Makes sense that Morn of Luria was there. He was there in a previous episode. We already knew that. Kryn, that's Kryn. There's Data. See,
Brunt.
Shout out to Data. And Brunt of Ferenginar. Also, the Okuna. This was a guy in Next Generation that was also in Prodigy a couple episodes. Okona, the guy with like the darkish hair and the eye patch.
Thaddy and Okona.
Thaddy and Okuna, yeah. But yeah, Brunt, FCA.
So he's up on the most wanted list.
Those guys are mentioned as associates of Sneed's. So when they were like researching Sneed and his associates, these are the people that came up.
Oh, okay.
So it's nice to know Brunt is still alive and kicking.
And being a scoundrel. In the belly of the underworld. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Speaking of which, I did like the guy who played this Kryn character. I know I mentioned it before, but the moment I enjoyed a lot when Rafi says, did you factor in that my friend's he's bleeding and dying over there? That'll kind of accelerate
things up. Yeah.
And Worf says, you will give me the information, something to that effect. And I love the line that he said, that would be logical. Like, yeah, I think I'm going to give you that info since I don't want my head chopped off right now.
Yeah, that actor really did nail it. The Kryn actor. He really
did. And he played it like a Vulcan, I thought. He played it like a wicked Vulcan. They did add kind of this tattoo effect on his face with a bunch of like lines coming down, squiggly lines coming down.
Love it.
They didn't really explain that, but I guess that's just like, his tattoo kind of cool shit. He had a scar on his face as well, but I was wondering about the tattoos on the face, like, maybe he was Vulcan and mixed with something else, or,
Yeah, I didn't recognize the tattoo. I just thought it looked cool. I don't know if it's from anything or anything we're supposed to know. I think it just was really cool to see that, it definitely adds to the character. It gets us to think of him as a different flavor. It gives, because if the character is only going to be around for an episode, presumably, for all we know, rather than just make him a, piece of exposition, give that character some depth, just like Sneed. Remember, Sneed was just in that one episode, I believe, but they gave him a lot to work with, and the actor played him really well. And suddenly, Sneed becomes
Sneed was the Ferengi.
Yeah,
was the Ferengi that they killed.
Yeah,
okay.
And he suddenly becomes this really interesting character in just a few scenes.
Yeah, and another thing that this show is doing a great job of is telling a story within an episode.
Yeah,
and then at the very end of the episode, after concluding whatever happened in front of us and wrapping it up in a nice little bow, they start to unwrap the next present for us. And at this episode, the unwrapping was, I thought was another great job when, first of all, Captain Shaw gives his catchphrase. Everybody has, engage or, make it so, or whatever it is that they yell. Shaw said, let's get out of here. That was his, his closing line, or his,
let's make like a baby and head out, he says.
Yeah. So his let's get out of here. But the moment after that was Riker saying, they're coming for us. And Picard responds, who exactly? And Riker's line was, everyone.
Mm-hmm. Because now they've been framed. So now everybody thinks that they killed Commander Rowe because the changelings framed them. So now the Intrepid and all the others are going to be gunning for them. So that's the direction that it's going to be going. Is now Captain Shaw is the captain of, the freedom fighter starship that's being chased by the other good guy. It's going to be cool. It's going to be a lot of fun.
We also got a nice closing on this episode about Crusher Jack telling his mom that something's wrong with him. So there's
Finally.
some kind of information exchange there, which is great. We got that, and also the data chip earring was another gem drop for what's to come. So there's a lot of dropping of gems for next episodes, which is great. They leave the cliffhanger, they close out the episode, and like I said, I'm enjoying the pace, and they do feel like motion picture quality storytelling for me.
Totally. And you know what else does? It's so cool that they have the end credits. They put the credits at the end with these beautiful Star Trek scores. Oh, it's so good. It feels like it feels like I'm sitting in a movie theater watching the end credits of an awesome Star Trek movie. When those end credits come up, I'm actually not turning off the end credits. I'm sitting there watching, especially the music is so good.
The music, yeah.
It's just beautiful. It feels like a movie, and the visuals are great. It's awesome. I love that touch that they did with that. Really cool.
Yeah, and also Dan mentioned the visual effects guys, but those guys are really kicking ass. When the Intrepid kind of turns on the Titan and is starting to align itself to go face heads up, I thought those graphics were great. One of its engines were burning because it had been sabotaged by Ro, and I just liked the moment. It just looked like, and then they fired those torpedoes, and just as the torpedoes are about to hit, they take off going warp. So there's nothing to hit. It was just really cool visual effects as well. And I'm excited about this season. I think it's when it's all said and done, you'll be able to play this third season like a movie back on end, one episode after the next. It will actually run like a 10-hour movie.
Yeah, another interesting thing is that with the Bajorans, how they have their names backwards and forwards or whatever like that. So Ro is like her last name. Her first name's pretty long. It's Kamatmib. What? It's Kamatmib, Ro.
Oh god. That was terrible.
Let's see if Don Crandall can save us. Our good buddy Don Crandall sent in a few notes here. So he sent in some images of the movies that Captain Shaw was referencing. Here's one when they were dropping the saucer section on a planet. Pretty cool. It was being piloted by Deanna Troi. So that's something that she has never lived down. Marina Sirtis is that the one time she takes the helm, she crashes the ship. So of course, not her fault, but it's just like a funny thing that people like to razz her about. Also, when Captain Picard snogs the villager that is here, I believe her name is Donna Murphy. She's kind of a big deal.
Oh, that's how they meant snogs.
Snog.
I thought it had to do with nog, but it's nothing.
Oh, there's our buddy. And Don Crandall says the Intrepid class, because the ship was the USS Intrepid. That is what the USS Voyager is. It's an Intrepid class ship. That's good knowledge there. Great, good point. The Voyager Doctor's mobile emitter. Remember how they shot Raffi and she disappeared, and then it was like a fake Raffi? That was a hologram, and because on her shoulder she had a mobile emitter, kind of like a little thing that is like that, and that is from Voyager. The EMH Doctor, played by Robert Picardo, ended up getting that in like an episode, and then it allowed him to go outside of sick bay. That was another good one. Okay, so that's great stuff there. Anyway, Any final thoughts before we get out of here and watch episode 6 as fast as we can?
Yeah, no, not really. Wardrobe was also great too. I'm looking at Worf's
I knew you would.
outfit behind
Me
you.
too.
It looks great. I like the off-center kind of design.
On that note, I noticed that Raffi was wearing a shoulderless thing, which I thought was a really smart move because if anybody hasn't noticed, she's obviously in great shape and she has great deltoid muscles. So they showed that, and then there were a couple little shots where she does this or that actually showed off a little bit of shoulder ripple, a little deltoid ripple, and I'm like,
smart.
I don't know if that was wardrobe directing, if that was Michelle Hurd herself, but somebody was like, let's show a little deltoid rippling. You've earned it, you know? So good on her for doing that. That was pretty badass.
Michelle Hurd could wear a bed sheet or a potato sack and make it look great. She's just an awesome person. She's just special like that. She's just built different. So, but yeah, I did notice the wardrobe as well. Also, like I said, the consistency of the lighting for those exterior shots when they're walking through what I call Blade Runner City. It maintained its consistency so far, and that's why I had questions for Dan about how he navigates through those kinds of shots. And it seems like it's just the fluidity of it is amazing. And Terry Matalas, man, the boy good.
The guy named after the planet, yeah.
The
guy named after Matalas Prime, right?
Yeah, that guy's pretty good.
Well, yeah, loving every second of it. I'm sure there are more Easter eggs and references out there that we've missed. So please let us know in the comments below anything that we may have missed or any corrections, because we're nothing if not responsible and honest. So you let us know what corrections we need to issue next week. And please be sure to like this video. If you're listening in, give us a 5-star rating and a nice review, and subscribe to this channel if you're watching on YouTube. We appreciate all of that. And please go visit us on patreon.com/the7th-rule. If you like what you see and you want to support, help us keep the lights on, help us keep that lighting that Cirroc is so fond of. We appreciate all of you. And please be sure to share this video with all of your pals so they know what fun we're all having together. And while you do that, we're going to give a special thanks to a few of our pals. And their names are, in alphabetical order, Homer Frizzell, Dr. Marie Segal, Eve England out in Wales, Yvette Blackmon-Tom, TJ Jackson-Bey out in Missouri, Bill Victor Arukin, Titus Moeller, Darlena Marie, Dr. Muhammad Noor, Tierney C. Diekman, Anna Post, Anil O. Palat, Joe Balsarati, Mike Gu, DQ, Neil Akasaka, Justine Norton Kurtzen, Dr. Stephanie Baker, Carrie Schwent, Faith Howell, Edward Foltz, My Live from Tokyo, The Matt Boardman, Chris McGee, Justin Weir, Jake Barrett, Jane Jorgensen, Henry Unger, Allison Leach Hyde, Jed Thompson, Luther Haynes Jr., Dr. Courtney Lewis, Beth Ernest, and of course, Dr. Susan V. Gruner and Jason Okun. By the way, that is alphabetical order in the Breen language. I forgot to mention the Breen.
Okay. Yes, the Breen.
So obvious. Anyway, thanks very much. Looking forward to episode 6. And until next time, enjoy our wild America. Do you ever used to watch that? Marty Stauffer? It was like a nature show back in like the 80s and 90s. Somebody knows. Anyway, Marty Stauffer. Anyway.
Nope.
Good time.
Good time.
We'll see you next time. Until then, always remember the 7th rule.